good evening, everybody. It is Tuesday, the 3rd of October, but how on earth did it get to be October? I have no idea. It's just all a bit nuts, but anyway, lovely to have you here. It feels like it's been a while, even though it's only been 4 months. I will be tonight showing how I've made the marbling effect when I had all that so much fun with the snails and the sugar mice and the cats for last week's event. So hopefully you can hear me okay. Hopefully you are there, or I am just going to be talking to myself. So I hope that all is well with you and that it's not too dark and rainy. It's very dark and rainy here, but it's autumn and the colours are starting to come out. The leaves are here. Anyway, I've had to do some prep work for tonight. I don't know how far I'll get with it because it is quite an involved process, even though the results are just so worth it. First of all, I have loosely chopped up translucent clay. This is Primo translucent clay that I've had for years. Absolutely, I probably bought it like at least 10 years ago, and it's still in good nick. But it's quite sticky to begin with. And I should also say that I am using a technique. I've varied it a little bit for the end stages, but I'm using a technique which has been done by Ginger Almond. Oh, what's her name? Like the full name. She does the blue bottle polymer clay thing. Anyway, she's really good. We have Alison on the line. Hello, Alison. Lovely to see you here. I'm just wittering away to myself, obviously. Oh, and Christy's here as well. Fantastic. Hello. Hello from California. I love it. I bet it's warm and sunny where you are, which is the polar opposite of what we've got over here at the moment. Anyway, I am just telling you that I am going to be showing you how I made the marble effect. So this is from Blue Bottle Tree, Polymer Tree. I have her tutorial. She calls it watercolour agate. That's how she does it. Heather's here as well. Hello, Heather from Glasgow. Fantastic. Gosh, we're going global. I love it. I love it. So she did this tutorial, which I've had for a while, and I've not done it, and I have now done it and it works, but I have tweaked it because she left the translucent clay just translucent, which doesn't really work on creatures, but covering it, using a white core really does work. That makes all the difference. Anyway, so what she says is chop the translucent clay into little bits, and then very lightly, I've just put some corn flour onto my fingers, and all I'm doing is just very, very lightly touching all of these, just so that they don't stick so much together. If the translucent clay is not sticky, not a problem, then you don't need to do this step. I think she had used cut up bits of old clay that she'd added softener to, so it was very sticky, but you don't really need to do it if it's not too sticky, because for the next stage, let me just put a tiny little bit more. Sorry, I missed that. Nicely warm with hot days to come, Christy. Oh, way to make us all feel, those of us in the UK, make us feel a little bit jealous of you here, because it's not that nice over here anymore. Gets dark at what, about 7:30? 7 o'clock? It's definitely getting, yeah, we've had rain and wind too, Alison. It's just like, in fact, we've had everything, but we've had lots of lovely rainbows, which is always, you know, that's just fantastic. What's the saying? It's like, when it rains, look for rainbows. When it's dark, look for stars. I love that, and it's very true. Anyway, so what I'm trying to do is just create sort of like slightly not too sticky little uneven lumps of translucent clay. There you go. Now I'm going to divide them into roughly 3 piles. They don't have to be completely equal, but the idea now is that I'm going to be, and I'm just sort of tearing bits up as I come to them because I just chopped them loosely before I came in. Yes, rainbows indeed. Oh, they were just beautiful today. Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a blue and silver, which I believe Kira had suggested for a cat. So why not give it a try? I will probably have to finish this off tomorrow, but let's see how far I get, and you'll see what's involved, because it's quite a process, and it's I've had to prepare my little cores of white clay beforehand, because if I did it once I'd started putting all the pastels on it, oh, well, it would just be a bit messy. Right, so these are little, I have shaved off some pastels and just put them into little pots just so that they're easy to use. That would be the word. So the idea is that I'm now going to, I'll just put them to one side just now. I'm now going to assign a colour to each one of these and then just start selecting individual lumps of clay. I mean, this is where it all gets a bit sort of, you know, delicate. This is the pale blue one, and I'm just going to lightly dust on all corners. You see how messy it's going to get. All corners of the clay. I don't want to do every single block, but the blocks that I do all have to be covered. And if I do more, these aren't very good pastels. They're very much more for drawing and whatnot. Apparently pan pastels are the ones to use. So I'm definitely going to invest in some of those. But the idea, dry paintbrush, and then just basically lightly dust. It doesn't really matter if any goes on the rest of them, on the other colours, because that'll just all add to the wonderful colours that there are. So basically, I don't know whether you can see that okay. So there's a few of these paler pastels, blues, little blocks, in amongst the clear ones. So as I say, not going to do lots and lots of them, because you need to keep you've got to leave some which are plain so that the translucency shows through, basically. But there needs to be enough so that there's some, what's the word? There's some, oh goodness me, this is me, can't multitask. What on earth was I saying? You've got to leave some of the translucent clay not coloured in, because that causes the translucency. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Yes, it is rather detailed. Kira, I'll see how he turns out. We'll see. I mean, hopefully I'll have enough of the marble cane, because it's a Millefiori technique. It's just a bit different. I really love it as a technique. I think it sort of suits my kind of fly by the seat of the pants mentality that I have on occasion. So yes, Kira, you may have joined us before or after I had said that I'm doing the blue and silver cat because you'd suggested it. So yes, if he turns out fine, then yes, one will come to you. So I think this will be enough of the light blue. I'm sure I probably need to wear like one of these dust extractors on my face. But yes, so you see how they're starting to, there's some, I'm just sort of lightly dusting a few of the others, but there will be some solid coloured blocks, and I want to make sure as many of them are separate. Now I also have some white, and I'm going to just do the occasional one in white as well, because that'll stop it being completely translucent in various points. It's wonderful. I mean, it's a super technique, but it is quite involved, and it's very messy. So it's something that I would only do in batches, which is why there were so many snails and sugar mice and cats in the last shop event. I was just like fascinated to see how, you know, what came out. Oh, it was just magic, just seeing how each of them worked. That's going to be quite a dark one. And the more that you layer up, apparently you can use eyeshadow for this little eyeshadow compact. So I might try that. That might actually make the colours a bit more vibrant. But the pale's good. If it's dark, a little goes a long way, as you will see when I start doing the darker ones. So I'm going to move on now to the middle pile, and I've got a sort of more of a dark turquoise colour. And I'm not cleaning the brush in between because there's no point, to be honest. I'm sure purists would say we should, but nah, can't be bothered with that. That's far too much hassle. Right, so again, just covering each one. And the other reason for keeping for not doing all of them, of course, is that you want these to stick together at the end. or whilst I'm making the marble cane, because if you have too many that are covered in powder, then they won't stick together. And that's one thing which, I mean, I often use corn flour. That's what I dusted my hands with, but I often use it if I need to stop clay from sticking together. It's a wonderful protector. It's a releasing agent. It basically just stops the clay sticking to each other, but we need the clay to stick to each other when it comes to making the cane, as you will see. So just again, trying to get, I'll mix them up a bit. You see how, I love the effect. Even at this stage, it is pretty magic. And then when the time comes for me to wash my hands, it is absolutely a scrubbing brush job, because my fingertips are, as you can see, rather challenged at the moment with colour. And you know me and Flob, and how much I really dislike it, and how I'm a bit of a neat freak. So this job, yeah, it has its challenges for me. It definitely has its challenges. We'll put a few more down here as well, I think. So yeah, so if you've got really sticky clay, then putting a dusting of corn flour is a good way of stopping it from sticking together. But actually, by adding the powder, the pastels to it, that does the trick as well. That sort of acts as a release and means that it doesn't it doesn't stick to itself. But you need to have enough clear ones that stick to themselves so that it will all actually form into a cane, which is, it looks like nothing, but it's an amazing process. I love it. All right, so just let's see how we're doing here. Because what I found, I mean, I made a lot. If you remember the bluey greeny ones I called Ocean, I think, that I coloured an awful lot of the individual blocks. I coloured more, and I thought, oh, actually, that's quite a dense, an intense colour. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of watching what I'm doing here rather than reading any comments that there may be, so I'm not ignoring you, honest. Well, I am, but not deliberately, and certainly with no malice. Anyway, yeah, so I thought, having seen how dense and sort of mixed the colours get, there wasn't a lot of blending between them, I thought it might be better just to have slightly less colours. I think there's a happy medium, and and each one will be different, so it's always good to experiment and see what comes up. So and it doesn't matter if they're uneven like this one, because I've just pulled it apart. That will all help to create these sort of odd shapes within the marbling effect itself. You know, that there's going to be nothing which is too structured or cut. So I actually cut all these little blocks at corners as well. These are just a few white ones that I'm putting in as well, just again in the interest of breaking up the colours. And I'll just mix those a little bit around. Okay, actually I might have to put in one or two more bits of the paler one, I think. Just one or two. Not many. You can get sort of an idea of the collection of them, if you like, already. So, okay, right, so they're the pale ones. Oh, that's the snail, or the will-be snail, would-be snail. And these ones I'm going to do darker again. I've got a really lovely royal blue colour, but I won't do too many of these because they are really going to be strong. The darker the colour, the more obvious it becomes, if you know what I mean. It's kind of important to get a nice balance, not too many dark colours, or else it just makes it look muddy and not really translucent at all. So I'll select a few at random. That's the word. Dear me. Oh, and I've got so many things to tell you about as well. I've been chatting to Rachel. We have a pre-order that I'm going to be announcing in the next few days for Christmas. She's going to, you're hearing it first. Oh, Protosnail, sorry, I've just caught your comment, Alison. Sorry about that. Yes, we're going to be doing a pre-order for Christmas tree creatures, and I will, if I have time, and if I have I don't want to get it dirty, you see, I might have to show you what it's going to be like, the prototype tree. But we're both very excited about it, and we're very excited about a pre-order for next year as well. So, oh, it's yeah, that's going to be another good one. But I'll unveil one at a time so that you don't get too excited. Can't have you sort of well, being too excited, I think is what I'm trying to say, badly. And again, it's just it's what we're doing. What, quarter of an hour I've been at this, having prepared it so far. And again, I'm going to do just a couple white, just to throw them into the mix. Right, so I don't really want too many more of the darker blocks. I'll just put one on that corner and one on that corner. Because each, you know, if you think about it, as I'm painting these, each of the surfaces is going to form a vein of marble. So that's why the whole block needs to be done just the way it'll squish out. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Right, okay, I think that'll do. I'm going to move them because I will no doubt inhale them at some point. Look at the state of me. My goodness, this is not me at all. Right, so what I'm going to do now is just kind of mix them around a bit and see what looks nice, and have a few over here and some over there. And just, and I'll add in some of the extra pastel sauce. The powder, the dust, that's the word. Right, now I want to lay it all out. Is there's still some bits which are sticking together a little bit, but that's okay. I'm trying to sort of, because I've now got dust and powder on my fingers, if I separate them out, that some of that will stick as a residue onto them and will make them slightly less sticky, which is fine. And what I'm going to do now is layer the metal foil. Now, I've had these foils for absolutely years. Absolutely years. I mean, I probably bought them way back in the early days of Querness. And, oh gosh. Sorry, I'm just catching up with your comments, Alison. Yeah, Christmas. You are going to like this one, I have to say. Right, anyway, so these foils, these are very thin metal foils. They come in lots of different colours. They're incredibly fine, and I'll try not to talk whilst I'm doing this because I am liable to blow them everywhere. So this is a silver. It's incredibly fine. And I don't want to sort of have a big chunk. I'm just going to tear off little bits and lay it on top. Do you remember the magic fish you used to get that would lie in your palm and would tell your fortune? That's what it's like. It's even finer than that. And it's sticking to me. And what I want it to do is stick onto the clay or onto the wet, you know, the sticky surfaces of the clay. That'll do. Oh, it's messy stuff. So I am now, because obviously I'm quite sticky, apparently. And then I have a trusty pastry brush. So what I'm doing now is just pushing it into so that it sticks more. And you see how it's all sort of sticking, it's gone in. It's also blowing about all over the place. But hey. Right, now, this is the good bit. Whoa. Just get rid of that. Right, so what I have to do now is squish it all together. And try not to I'm not trying to mush it together, I'm just trying to squish it. Technical terms, you understand. The fish that came in Christmas crackers, that's exactly it. I think you can still get them, would you believe it? Fortune teller fish, I think they were called. They were great, you know, you would lay them on your hand, and if their tails moved or if their heads moved, then that would tell your fortune. You probably still can get it. Right, this is where I have to, like, I'm applying quite a lot of pressure here just to get them as solidly adhered together as they can do. This is pretty good, actually. I have learned a lot, grasshopper, from last week's work on what works better. Now, do you see already? I'm not sure how clear that you can see that, and it'll be even better in due course. This is quite a small cane that it will be, but the idea will be now to squish it, not to roll it, not to press it. Well, yes, press it, but not to, I'm not trying to mix the colours, I'm just trying to squish them all together, if that makes sense. And I'll show you once I've done this, because it's quite a, oh, do you know, like, it keeps your muscles fit, I tell you. Right, this is just a little, this is actually a sugar mouse, an embroidered sugar mouse, like what I put them on when I'm making them, particularly the embroidered ones. So I'm just using this to press the cane down and press all the lumps together, basically. And I want to get it into more or less a kind of a square, but a rectangle will be fine. But oh, it's normally I stand up for this and I'm not at the moment because my phone's in the way. So yeah, upper body strength for sure. And the more I can squish it together, the more it will adhere into like proper marble form. And because of the way translucent clay is, it's just much more pliable and malleable than normal polymer clay. I'm in love with it, I have to say. I mean, given that I'm just about to use the very last part of translucent clay that I've had for at least 10 years and probably 12, and maybe even closer to 14. It's been a while. Right, so here we go. It's into more or less a cube form now. Oh. And now what I want to do is cut it into roughly equal sized sized slices. Oh God, my brain. Sorry, I'm thinking about 3 steps ahead. In fact, I think I want to have it just a little bit thinner than that. This is the other thing, because she was saying ginger almond. I can't remember her full name, but blue bottle polymer tree, whatever. Anyway, I will send you the link. I'll add the link later. She was saying make it into a square because she was making earrings and things, but I'm making small creatures. So actually mine need to be not quite so square, or just smaller squares, which means more of an oblong shape. Right, okay, I think we're good now. Right, so this is where I'm going to cut roughly equal sizes. I want to make it broadly into a square, so, or a rectangle, so like either 9 or 12 slices if I can get them. And I don't want this to be too thin just now, so I'm doing them about 2 mils thick at the moment. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm sure I'll find a use for that one if I need to. Right, and then, oh, it's going to be good. And then I basically just sort of start pushing them together to form a sort of just a mat of them. And it's good if they're not, if they're sort of up and down and side by side, and if they're not uniform, basically, because that's how marble is. Marble is not uniform. And ultimately I'll be pushing all these in quite closely together. I might just want to, do you see how that's basically one of the dark blue blocks that I've done the outside of it, so it's created the outline, and I've cut through into the translucent clay. Love it. Do you know, I honestly, polymer clay just amazes me so much. Even after all these years of working with it, I love it when I find a new technique, something new to play with, and it's marvellous. It's just marvellous. So I'll put that one upwards, and that one can go sideways. And I'm not worried about the holes between the slices at the moment. because I will fill them all out. And I think we'll have that one that way. Now I've got 2 at the end, but they'll play their part. Right, and so now what I'm doing is kind of squishing each of the tiles, getting it a little lower, blurring the lines between them, and also filling in the gaps. So just manoeuvring the clay a little bit, manipulating it, moving it around. Excuse me, that's all the dust, all the pastel dust. Right, and then, see, my fingers are getting cleaner. This is good. I'm going to roll it a little bit. I'll put it through the pasta machine in due course. But for now, I'm going to try and neaten up the edges as best I can. Doesn't matter so much, but it just means it'll mean less waste. But then there is no waste, because if you see what I do with them afterwards, that's something else to show you. I'll do that at the end. So it's very sticky at the moment because it's actually very hot in here too, and it's also quite thick. This is much thicker than I would normally use for Millefiori canes. And also some of the parts, like this bit, is not sticking so well because it's got the foil on it as well. This is the other thing that you need to keep an eye on, is to make sure, and this is me just putting a little bit of liquid polymer clay to make sure that the join is good for those pieces which have foil on them. Again, that's why important to still have some unpasteled blocks so that they do all stick together. Right. Okay. Oh, this is going to be really nice, I think. So I just want to roll it out a little thinner and a little bigger, and then and I must show you how good the translucent clay actually is. It's wonderful stuff. And this is it's Sculpey, Primo Sculpey, or Sculpey Primo I should say. That's the make of the translucent clay. Apparently Cernit is supposed to be better. But I think for what I need it for, it doesn't have to be that translucent because of the clay. Thank you for, I appreciate your, excuse me, my squishing abilities. Yes, I just need a slurp of tea now. Oh, my word. Right. So, yes, let's see if I can show you how translucent it is. I need to shine a light behind it so you can see it. Let's see whether this works. This is a I'm not sure that this will work. No, I don't think that's going to work. I can see how wonderful it is. You will see how wonderful it is when it's actually done. But sorry, it's and that bit's still not quite stuck together. So I'm actually going to squish the edges together, slightly overlapping. So I have failed in my squishing. How can I? So actually what I'm doing, instead of just doing edge to edge, I'm slightly overlapping. Oh dear. Yeah, the talking whilst doing this is probably not a good idea with all the pastel dust floating about. Right, so what I'm going to do now is roll this through the pasta machine. That should be pretty, yeah, that's going to stick together. It might fray a bit at the edges, but I'll start at the wide edge, at the thickest setting, and then roll it round on each side, in each direction, and that should hopefully make it. That'll do it. It'll stretch it uniformly without any issue. So sorry about this. Talk amongst yourselves. I'm just standing over at the pasta machine. I've gone up to. I'll go up to 5, which is like the half thickest or the half thinnest, depending on how much of an optimist you are. Right, and let's Oh, goodness. It folded in on itself. So it's still quite sticky. Oh, no, 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 no. Right, let's see if I can do it from here. Right, okay. I'll salvage enough of it. Oh. The other good thing, there are many good things about this technique. Ah, oh, this is annoying. Right, I'm just going to cut that bit off. Right, and see if I can salvage this. The other good thing is that I can use all these sort of little chopped off torn pieces. I can still use them. Oh, but maybe that's why she uses more of the corn flour than I would like to. Right, okay, I can salvage some of that later. I now have a good piece that I can use. See, this is why never go into live television. Right, so we will do. Yeah, I'll sort that out in a bit. We'll do, what do you think? Snail or a cat? I think it has to be a cat, really, doesn't it? So the idea now, and this is a great thing. My hands are filthy. I would normally be off scrubbing them and all the rest of it. Because this is going on that, it's not such of an issue. It's really not such of an issue. But what I have to do is cover it with as least air bubbles. The curse, my curse. It's because it's warm in here as well, actually, I'm realising. So I shall just cut enough to roll it round and seam it there. And yeah, it's quite friable stuff, this. I mean, it's not the easiest to work with because it's either very sticky or and it tears very easily. So this is where I need to just trim it just to make sure that there's not really very much excess clay round about the side. So this is where I just trim it. Normal scissors. This is how I make the sugar mice as well. I'll just sort of squeeze the ends into a point. And I'm sort of folding it into a very thin, whether you can see that, but the idea is I've got it as close as possible to the actual clay. I'm just going to take the excess silver off. Oh, I am sorry. It is the dust. Right, so I'm just going to trim this as close to the clay as I can. There we go. Wonderful. Oh, how good does that look? I love this technique. I really do. Now, if I'd made it darker, it would have been a darker, more marbly color. But the thing is, it will. I really like having some of the white showing through, the translucency showing through. I think it works very well. And because it's so sticky, which makes it hard to work with, but because it's so sticky, it means that it blends together very well, much better than normal millefiori. And then I just have to decide which side to use for his face. I think that's his back. So then I can move it there. There we go. Now, the thing is as well, is I've got to use up this before I start working on creatures. I'll just take another little nick of the silver, just so that it's, because that's really nice when it's sort of embedded in the marble itself, in the clay. On the surface, yeah, it works. It's nice to have a little bit, but not too much. So you can still sort of manipulate it as you're going on. So yes, this will be a cat. Right, and I shall do a snail as well, just because I made. So I've just taken, made up a little triangle cube cone of clay, white clay, and then it's just a question of draping it on. Again, making sure that it's it doesn't, there are no bubbles, and just allowing the clay to sort of drape where it will whilst trimming it. Dear. You know, I don't think I spoke to anybody when I was making these last time, so I hadn't realised just quite how cough making it is. And I'll just again use scissors just to trim that bit off. So I'm kind of following the shape of the actual clay, you know, the marble clay, and also just keeping it as close. I can tear off bits as well, as close to the actual core as possible. And again, I'm just pinching it to the edge. This is actually how I made how I make the pumpkins, and of course we're coming into pumpkin season now. You know, when I'm covering my little polystyrene balls, I use the same technique. Scissors are a great resource basically. And then I can just, you know, patch away, trim off that bottom bit, and then the fun bit, which is an old scraggy coaster, a glass coaster that I've had for years, and then I'm just rolling it at a slight slant so that it reforms the cone shape and also joins the clay together. But I will also, because I can still see some of the seam, so I'm just going to rub my finger on it, and that actually helps move the powder and blends the seam a little bit more. And then it's a case of finding out, deciding which will be the top part, and that's going to be the top for me. So I shall just make my little spiral snail shell, which I have made many of these over the years. So I've kind of perfected the technique. So it's about making quite a smooth, thin end, pointy bit that's going in the middle. So at the moment it looks a bit like a gnome's hat. Oh, sorry, was I off camera there? Apologies. So it's just very lightly curving that in on itself, and then twisting it round very lightly. It's actually more sort of bringing the bottom half round to meet it, and making sure that it's as even as it needs to be. Oh, I like this. This is rather lovely. Right, and then cutting it off at an angle. This bit kind of just doing it by eye, but I've more or less kind of, you know, I've had a lot of experience of making snails. Those of you who remembers the Snail Emporium, I loved my Snail Emporium. I only sold snails. I had a shop that only sold snails, and it was called the Snail Emporium. I loved it. Anyway, so I'm just pressing out the foot. Is that what it would be called? The edge of it, the flary bit. I mean, it's a bit like French horn, really, in many ways. Just making sure that the bottom edge comes up, because that's going to go on the neck, this bit here, without squeezing the bottom bit, because that's it formed now. I could not unravel that if I wanted to, because of the because the translucent clay is so sticky. Did I mention that? Right, I am now going to quickly wash my hands a little bit with wet wipes, get the worst of the pastels off me, because I did actually prepare a snail body earlier in the best Blue Peter tradition. Here's one I prepared earlier. So we'll move all this to one side, and now I've got the worst of this powder off. I can also make the cat. We're doing okay. It's 20 to 9 actually. Here's the snail that I made earlier. Okay, so I made this when I had clean hands. So he's already got his eyes and he's got his feelers in, and he's ready for his shell, which is here. So I shall now put a little bit of liquid polymer clay at just strategic points. Probably doesn't need it, but I always want to make sure everything is as firmly connected as possible. And then I'll just support his neck whilst I put the shell on. And then just make sure that it's at the right, it's all straight. There we go. I do love the snails, I have to say. Look at that. That's the snail. Done. Wonderful. And he's going to join his friend, but I'll tell you about that in the morning when I've finished him. Yeah, he's definitely okay now. He'll go up there. Right. So the cat, I need to make nothing gets wasted here. So this is the offcuts from the snail, and what I'm going to do, because I need to get ears cut out of it, so I'm going to just stack them together. I'm not blending them. They will blend together when I actually put them through the pasta machine, because basically I need to have a flat section so that I can cut out the ears. So ears are here, and I also need to oh, that's one thing I didn't prepare, was actually the ear inserts. Oh well, I'll just do that quickly now. The ear inserts are just a little bit of white clay rolled out to the fattest point. Yeah, because I'm not sure I've ever made a cat in one of these demonstrations, have I? So yeah, there'll be more work for this to do with this cat, but I can at least make him look presentable, and of course have a good rummage in the eye box. Got to have a rummage in the eye box. What would it? A Brew and a Blether would not be a Brew and a Blether without doing that. So this is just trimming a little bit for the ear inserts. Move that to one side. I cut a slight sliver so that they're slightly smaller, thinner than the actual insert that I've just pressed in. There we go. Bit of flob, of course. You'd think I wouldn't be bothered about flob, but for some reason it still gets to me. Right, so just press that in with my clay shaper. And that one too. And then cut them, trim them to size. They can just be, they need to be at a slight angle because they're going to sit on a rounded head on either side. And I'll keep those bits that I've trimmed off because I'll show you. I will show you what I have done. Go. Now I'm not gluing these on yet, but I can't press them on too heavily at the moment because I've prepared chops. It was, you know, there's so many steps to be done for this. I really had to sort of prepare them earlier. So that's just so I can get the eye position right. There we go. Just over a little bit. He's coming on, he's coming on. So, and now eye box. We have the eye box. So let's see if I can quickly fish out a couple of good kitten eyes. Now these need to be quite, not too big, probably nearer 2.5 to 2.7 mils, that'll do. And no, that's too small. See that one? Oh, that's about right. Okay, and I'll be very careful with that. And And just, again, this is, I can't tell you how sticky this clay is. Translucent clay is very temperamental. And it's variable as well. You know, I've had some packets which are just like rock and you cannot use them. You know, it's just far too crumbly. This is verging on the unusable because it's so thin, so sticky, so soft is what I was trying to say. Right, I'm now going to just gently push in the eyes. Trying not to put any pressure on the back and trying to keep them the same distance. Because it is so squishy, it could very easily just kind of squash together instead of maintaining the sort of the cat shape. So I shall now, little dab of liquid clay, not that it's needed, put the chops on. Oh, there we go. Oh, he's a cutie. He is a cutie. There you go. And I'm also just kind of pushing him lightly at the back so that he's looking upwards. I wonder actually, I mean his chops could be even a tiny little bit smaller. Now I'm not going to take off these ears, they've probably actually already started to glue themselves to the clay, so I'll just finish the job. They're in the right place. So all I'm doing is clay shaper and just making sure that they're nicely blended. And that gives them a bit of a fluffy inside ear as well. It's great stuff. Right, so he just needs his tail now. And his tail, I will use one of the bits of clay that went in on itself, and I'll just roll it into a tube at an angle so that the marble is not completely symmetrical. And again, just pushing it together, not rolling it, not blending it, just pushing it together. And yeah, it'll be a little cattail. I need to put a white bit on the top of it as well. So I shall trim that and just use a little bit of the snail. Nothing is wasted. Love it. Nothing is wasted. I love these little cats are so cute without the paws. I think it's just, I love the stylized nature of it. So I'm just putting a bit of normal white clay onto the end of his tail. And I'm just sort of pushing it back into itself, making it a little bit thicker. And I think about that will be the right width. And then, there we go. Trying to bring it round on the, so that it's sitting on the floor, the ground. There we go. Hey, hey, it's my little cat. It just needs to be signed now. Right. So I will do that. And there's my cane, my signature cane that has been on the go for at least 6-7 years possibly. Still got quite a few left. There we go. Is that? That's the right way around anyway. And then just press it there and he's signed. There we go. It's my little cat. So I made a cat and a snail. Whew. And I have still got some yeah, this is what it's happened. You see how I can't actually undo that, but I will roll it out again. It won't lose all of its definition. It'll just diffuse it slightly, so none of it will get wasted. It's just magical stuff. It's nearly 10 to 9. I didn't realise it was quite so late. Apologies for that, but thank you so much for joining me. For me and the little snail and the cat. And yes, the other thing I was going to show you is that I made up a scrap cane from all the scraps of clay that I made from last week. And look, I don't know how clear that will be to see, but this is the cane that I made. I don't know how it's going to bake up, but I made a snail shell earlier and it's so pretty. I mean, it looks like sort of roses and garden and just lovely, and it's scrap clay. But the way that I've sort of pushed it together, folded it, cut it in half, pushed it together, and then, you know, it's just made this wonderful pattern. So you can expect to see some little garden snails as well as a result of this. So thank you so much for joining me, and I shall post pictures of the finished creatures tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening wherever you are, and thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you soon. Bye.